Jakkie, it's great to have you here at the Institute again. You have produced a paper that focuses and does some forecasts on, based on the National Development Plan, on South Africa's National Development Plan that has been much in the news over the last several months. Could you summarize for us some of the key points to come out of the report around the challenges that South Africa's development trajectory faces?
Yes, the National Development Plan says that South Africa's really got two major problems, inequality and unemployment. And it presents a vision on how to fix that. And it basically says the prerequisite is growth, and it sets a target of 5.4% average growth year on year from now until 2030. Now, our forecast is that South Africa will grow at about 3.4%. So you need an additional 2% per year growth. That's very, very difficult to achieve. We've done some modeling to see how possible it is. It is possible, but it will not be easy. But South Africa can grow at 5.4% and deliver on all the other goodies, but it's going to be a challenge, and that requires political leadership most of all, and it requires a government that is able and capable.
One of the interesting points that comes out of the NDP and also the paper that you've produced is the fact that manufacturing is not likely to be the panacea that many of us hope it will be in terms of job creation. Linked to that, of course, has been the debate around beneficiation, that by linking our extractive sector to greater beneficiation in country, we'd be able to create more manufacturing industrialization sectors in the economy and stop that decline. And that certainly has been a great part of our engagement with emerging economies over the last several years. So bearing that in mind, what should in fact be the economic strategy that South Africa follows?
The NDP says, in my view, largely correctly, that future jobs will grow in the services industry. They argue that South Africa is a niche manufacturer and cannot compete on manufacturing with high quality producers such as Germany. However, South Africa needs manufacturing. It needs to maintain its manufacturing sector, particularly into Africa. We have a huge advantage. We, of course, run up against China in doing so. But it's services and it's agriculture where our major job growth is going to be. And inevitably, probably partly in the informal sector. And the NDP doesn't speak much about the informal sector at all. Beneficiation can play a role. There's no doubt about it. We have a tremendous mineral potential, but it doesn't create the amount of the number and the quality of jobs that we're looking for. So I think beneficiation as the strategy for South Africa has got probably limited life.
The concept of the gateway is something that South Africa has often presented itself as. That's one of its competitive advantages vis-a-vis emerging powers, vis-a-vis other interested players on the continent. But in fact, if we look at the trajectories of all African economies, South Africa is by far one of the slowest growing economies over the next couple of decades. What does that mean for how South Africa positions itself in Africa and indeed in the world?
Well, within the BRICS context, it's quite difficult because we are a competitor to China, and our economy is also highly resource intensive, like that of Russia. So our makeup is probably closer to Brazil, a little bit, hopefully, where India may be growing in some of the IT areas. So that's quite differentiated. Our backyard is Africa, and that's where our great potential is in terms of manufacturing, services, growth. And that's where we have a competitive advantage. So growing our African market, manufacturing services and all those components into Africa, and expanding our footprint in Africa. But having said that, we are not a gateway into Africa. We are a gateway into Southern Africa, and we are one of the leading countries in Africa. But I think one must be careful of making the assumption that South Africa, it is still the largest economy, but our relative position is declining, and shortly Nigeria will overtake South Africa as the largest economy in Africa. But we certainly have a number of advantages that relate to serving into Africa. Our financial sector, the quality of some of our financial institutions is particularly strong. And that's where our competitive advantage lies. African integration, absolutely critical for South Africa.
You've said in your observations, and we see that also in the paper and in the report, the key challenge is how we manage the politics of the National Development Plan. It's contested. We've seen a great deal of contestation emerge from labour unions, from other sectors of society, notwithstanding the fact that it's been accepted by the ANC at the Mangaung conference. How are we going to navigate this, and what does that mean really for what is the prognosis for the NDP in this political landscape, this political environment?
The NDP is very important for South Africa. We need a vision. We need a plan, we need a strategy. The NDP is all of that. It is open to wide interpretation. It's a very thick document. It doesn't set clear enough priorities except maybe for growth. And there is no doubt that the implementation is where the rubber hits the road. The department within the presidency, the National Planning Commission is going to move aside, and the idea become more of an advisory body. And the idea really is that the NDP be mainstreamed at departmental and at provincial level, and that every department is held and every provincial government is held accountable to the goals of the NDP. And it is that implementation that is going to be the most difficult challenge. Government is struggling. It is struggling with capacity, but I think the issue that concerns most analysts the most is political leadership. This must be driven by the President and from his office. Collins Chabane and others can monitor and they can help with compliance, but holding every minister, every Director General accountable to the framework that is set out in the National Development Plan politically is the biggest challenge. And that's, I think, where South Africa probably faces the biggest risk.
Thank you.